Hello, Janksters, and welcome to another episode of the MagicJank podcast, the show where team members of MagicJank get together and we talk about the latest happenings in Magic the Gathering. And boy howdy, this last week has been absolutely insane. We have a ton of stuff to talk about. Actually, Wizards of the Coast decided to time one of the biggest news drops that they have ever done on like the day we released last week's episode. So the timing on that maybe didn't work out great. So you may have heard some of these topics, but we're going to offer our takes, our opinions on them, and we'd love it if you stick around. So all the stuff from the GenCon announcement as well as the banned and restricted announcement that happened this last week are on the docket, and I'm very much looking forward to it. So my name is Graham. I go by Hamhawks42 on the internet, and I am joined, of course, by the one and only, I'm going to mix it up today. We got HollywoodPizza in the house. Hollywood, how you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty awesome. Wasn't expecting the old curveball there. I was like, oh, hey, it's me. Doing pretty great, man. Got some pretty awesome articles out this week on MagicJank.com, so definitely check them out about the tournaments. Definitely like a deep dive in the last Explorer tournament, and I let you know what to play this weekend. Kind of just like been enjoying life. Been back to work. I was hurt my back again early in the week, but got back into it, and as soon as I got back into it, going through like thousands of cards and enjoying the old bulk mines and just finding gold here and there, and I love Magic so much that I can just look at thousands of cards forever and not get tired of it. It's pretty insane, but
I get that. Like sometimes I'll sit down to sort through my bulk for like 20 minutes or so, and then 4 hours pass. It's like, whoa, what happened? Yeah. And
that's
sometimes we find some gems.
Like.
They're gems in them mines. It's true. And then we also have got Karlov Jr. How you doing, bud? How you doing?
Hello. What up? Yeah, doing well. Having some fun this week. Building some new commander decks to play. Just built a new Gandalf the White deck that I took for a test spin today, and hopefully I'm going to be playing a lot in the future. So yeah, having a good time.
Excellent. Yeah, that thing is fun. You can do some silly stuff with that card. I can see why it's one of the chase mythics from that set, which, I mean, one of the Gandalfs had to be good, right? So I'm glad we got that one. Although I have a soft spot for Gandalf the Grey, but it's not on the same level. Anyway, but yes, before we get into the meat of the episode, I also want to give a huge thank you and a huge shout out, of course, to MagicJank.com. They are the namesake of this podcast, as well as the website and the sponsor that keeps this afloat, as well as the team that we're all part of, the streaming team. Fun fact, we're all streamers, by the way. That's also a thing, and our links are in the description. If you want to check us out, that'd be super cool. But we also... Yeah, MagicJank.com. It is the company that's kind of brought this whole thing together. It is a website where you can buy and sell Magic the Gathering products, gear, singles, sealed products, you name it. Definitely check us out over there, MagicJank.com. And we're going to have a link to that in the description as well, as always. So we'd love it if you check them out for all of the cool stuff that we're going to be talking about today, because there are a lot of... there's a lot of new products coming, and it's pretty exciting. And also, actually, the very first topic that I wanted to discuss was the banned and restricted announcement. The big annual banned and restricted announcement that was going to tide us over until next year at this time, when they will do their next scheduled banned and restricted announcement, unless emergency bans need to happen between now and then. And there was a lot of discussion, a lot of excitement around what formats might see some shakeups. And in the end, they didn't ban a single card. Not one. In fact, there were 2 cards that got unbanned. In Modern, we have Preordain, which is just one of the strongest kind of one-mana cantrips that we've seen in a very long time. So, okay, sure. And then in Legacy, they unbanned Mind's Desire, which, if I'm not mistaken, this card has been on the ban list for like 20 years, and now it's not. So what do you guys think about these changes? Where are we standing? Also, I got to give Carlo a huge shout out. You mentioned Ponder and Preordain getting unbanned in last week's episode. So, kudos for identifying that Preordain was safe, because Wizards was on the same page.
Yeah. We made some predictions last week and some suggestions. And I know I'd been talking about this with some of my friends over the last, couple weeks through the Pro Tour and stuff, like what were cards that we thought could be banned, should be banned. Or do we think anything deserves an unban? And definitely there was a discussion around Preordain and or Ponder talking about, are these cards really that powerful that they can't be played in this format with a bunch of free spells and Karn, the Great Creator, and the consensus we had was that something could be unbanned, and that's why I suggested it last week. And you take a look at some of the decks now being played on Magic Online post ban announcement, and people are jamming some Preordain. I've seen a lot of modern decks now on Magic Online challenges or leagues that are like 5-0ing. They don't go above 2 converted mana cost cards anymore with Preordain. Some of them are exploring out to be included in like Murktide region decks. Some of them are just generally playing more turbo bowmaster deck with these cards, and that's all fine and dandy. But yeah, I'm excited to see what, if any, impact is had by Preordain in the format, considering we have cards like Consider that I think might be a little bit better than Preordain now. But yeah, we'll have to see some results and see what's going on.
We've even hit a card draw power creep, Carlo. Is that what you're saying? Where Consider is even better than a card that was potentially making Storm dangerous deck or some other combo decks, which is pretty much why Ponder and Preordain are banned, right? Is the fact that these 2 cards specifically made a lot of combo decks in the format in the past be a lot more consistent rather than these cards kind of being mid-range powerhouses, kind of more like an Expressive Iteration is. Expressive Iteration costs 2 mana and it's better than this card. It's so funny that even this unbanning doesn't seem like it's really going to impact the format in any way outside of you maybe thinking that Murktide's a playable deck this week, but it's still not. So I love that we unbanned some cards. I actually think that this is still a good move in a move in the right direction. I think maybe they needed to unban some other cards that were maybe riskier on the line to see if they did get play, whereas this card is just like it's kind of like a little it feels flat. Like we all got excited. We're like, ooh, are they going to ban Bowmasters? Or are they going to actually ban a new card? Or are they going to ban Grief? Or oh, Scam is so broken. Oh, what about Karn? Right? Like we went over so many cards, and then they're just like unban 1 mana blue card that was good 8 years ago. And it's like, okay, it's like a little awkward. And then on the other end, I don't play enough Legacy. I did, remember when Mind's Desire was a bomb card, but I mean, don't we just die from the tendrils? There's more broken cards in the deck than the Minds. I mean, you cancel a few more cards and then missing because you didn't hit like your win con or something. I guess it's probably harder to do. Because the decks are so consistent now and play a lot more of the same cards that do the same things, but I feel like this is just like fine. It's just another Storm card. I mean, literally just another Storm card. I think that's probably where they went. They were just like, well, Grape Shot and Tendrils exist, and you can still die on turn 1 in Legacy every once in a while, and whatever. I just put a 6 mana sorcery in that has the potential to not hit a card that lets you win the game. It's more. This is like the most RNG of all the Storm cards, even though this card was played a lot in its heyday and like extended and to a bigger extent Legacy when it was popular and extended, which made it essentially get banned. But overall, I think that Mind's Desire isn't really going to have as much of an impact. I mean, I'm going to be surprised with so many more powerful cards that exist now in the format, but I think that the Preordain is fine. I'm not going to say that I wanted this card specifically, but I wanted like a Grave Troll unbanning where it's like, ooh, can Grave Troll even make Dredge a deck? Probably not, right? Like Grave Troll made Dredge a deck because Hogak was broken. I think you could probably unban Grave Troll and it wouldn't be that bad. I think the only reason they rebanned Grave Troll is because they didn't want to unban or ban Hogak because Hogak was so new. So I think overall, like it's the same thing with the One Ring and Bowmasters, right? Like we don't want to ban the One Ring because the One Ring is like the face card, and we don't want to ban Bowmasters because it's brand new. So, people are spending $45 on Bowmasters. So it's like, it's a bit awkward. I think it's still a step in the right direction. Like I said, it's, now when we look at the announcements, it's closer to like an unbanned and restricted announcement rather than like a banned and restricted announcement.
Yeah.
This one was, yeah.
Yeah. So just like, sort of a last take on it. They did mention the One Ring and Orcish Bowmasters in the announcement, right? They said, we're going to look at it. We're going to monitor it. They talked about, like, this has never happened before. Like, 2 cards from the most recent set seeing top spots in play of the Pro Tour. So they said they're looking at it. They'll monitor it, so on and so forth. They actually said something specifically about Orcish Bowmasters, about how it is preventing, creatures with 1 toughness from being able to have much of a impact on the format. And specifically, they talked about Orcish Bowmasters blowing up Ragavan, but then said Ragavan is only really played in one of the top decks, which is the Rakdos Scam or Evoke deck, whatever you want to call it.
Then let's unban a card that's bad against Bowmasters too while we're at it.
Right. So,
why?
I'll tell you, I was more surprised that they took no action in Pioneer than anything else. Like, we knew it was the annoying cards in Modern that we wanted to hopefully see get hit. But nothing in Pioneer either was super surprising to me.
I think Pioneer's fine. The only problem is it's just stale. I think that it needs Pioneer Masters. I think it needs an infusion of cards to either prop up some already existing archetypes that are closer to tier 2, 1.5 into tier 1. And I think it's just stale. I think it's like nothing's really that crazy. Some decks do annoying things, but I feel like I actually agree with it's fine, but I can see why a call to bans is the direction everybody wants to go, just because it would shake up the format. Whereas for me, it's like, go the same direction, unban some cards or print cards into the format. So that way, older cards that we already had, like, any old staple from Modern that isn't even played anymore is probably playable in Pioneer, considering that if you look at Modern, it's all more of an influence from like new things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and the next big Pioneer event that's to come is going to be DreamHack in Atlanta for the regional championship as Pioneer there. So, it'll be interesting to see what decks come out then. You'll have 2 new sets being released in Standard that will be legal in Pioneer, right? Thrones of Eldraine, and then Ixalan will come out in winter 2023. Pretty sure in time for that particular tournament. So it'd be interesting to see if any of those cards have any impact on the format or not. And whether or not the top dog of the format will be realized, because that's why they said they took no action, right? They said there was no top dog of the format.
If there was a Pro Tour for Pioneer, you probably see it, right? Just like you saw Mono Green Tron be the deck of the weekend.
Right. Yeah, and I could say, there's clear pillars to the format in Pioneer. I would agree that there's not really a top dog, but I am still a firm believer that Karn, the great creator, should have been gone from that format, and allow the Mono Green Devotion to still exist without it being as nutty as it is.
Yeah, I would not have been mad to see a Karn the Great Creator ban. The reality is, though, for me anyway, I feel like the no action is understandable. And, the pizza, you touched on it when you just said the format's stale. Honestly, right now we're in August. It's been a while since, the Lord of the Rings was kind of the latest thing, and obviously it made a huge shakeup in the formats where it's legal. But the formats where it's not legal, we haven't seen a reasonable change in a long time. And so, the best decks have just kind of risen to the top, and they've just kind of chilled. And so hopefully the new sets that are coming out, once we get into fall and winter, hopefully change that. Because honestly, for me, it's just cabin fever. Is really all it comes down to. People were talking about, I can't believe anything got banned in Standard. And it's like, everyone who says that cited a different card that needed to get banned. So it's like, well, that means Standard's probably fine. It's all very powerful, so Trax is nuts. Yes, Sheldred's nuts. But You're not running them in the same deck, and there isn't one clear, best thing.
Right.
It's flowing right now since the most recent ban, which was months ago. So like I don't, that the more I think about it, the more I'm okay with it. I'm just tired of going up against Sheoldred and the Wandering Emperor and and some of these cards. I've just seen them a lot. That doesn't mean they're problematic. It just means I'm ready for a change. That's all. And that's okay to have that feeling. It's just, but you don't ban cards based on that feeling. So yeah.
I think with the how I feel about Pioneer, maybe I could be wrong, but at least the way I look at it is like a realization of Wizards is kind of putting Pioneer on the side. They know that it's not like a broken format or anything. They fixed it when they made whatever the most recent bans were. It's not a broken format, right? But they're still allowing it to develop a bit by having like competitive play a little bit around it. I think that Pioneer's on the side until they do a little bit more with these other formats. And then next year, and maybe even the year after, is when Pioneer comes to the forefront, where just like Carlos saying, maybe some more sets come in. Maybe they know that some cards will make a difference. And I think that there's optimism, even though it's stale. And for me, it's more like, I think that they have a lot of confidence in Pioneer, but right now they know that it's not the most popular thing. So it's just put to the side. Whereas Modern has been the most popular competitive format for a few years now, probably since, pre-COVID, post-COVID era. Modern's like the format that everyone gravitates to because they're the cards everyone still has. Whereas like Standard, right, the new sets come out, cards rotated, everyone missed that boat a little bit. So now everyone maybe feels a little bit behind on those cards. So I think Pioneer is closer to Modern in the sense that people have all these old Standard cards, but everyone has the same feelings about Pioneer, which is it's stale, we need a change. And I think eventually it's going to be there. I personally have a lot more confidence in the format in that something's going to come. We don't know what it's going to be, whether it's the Pioneer Masters or new cards that come in or unbans. Maybe this is a good testing ground for them to unban something in Pioneer that would maybe make a new deck or, make an existing, like I said, tier 2 1.5 deck a lot better. And I don't know, I have confidence in it, but I do think, like I said, it just falls flat. We really wanted like something exciting, and it kind of just like didn't happen. And it with bans, it almost always is a shock value, and this time it was just like, oh, a couple blue cards. It's like, what?
Normally we're looking to ban those.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. like normally it's like, oh, this card's busted. But I mean, like I said, like they unbanned a card that's literally bad against Bowmasters. That you're going to play your Ragavan, and then you're going to be like, turn 2 Preordain. Then they're going to be like, yeah, Bowmasters. It's like, yeah, your card's dead. And then you take another one too, and now I have 3 power on board.
It absolutely blows my mind that we're in a situation where Ragavan is being called unplayable. Like, wasn't it just a few months ago where people were saying that Ragavan was the single most busted thing WotC's ever made? Like, that. Like, I'm just trying to process that.
It's just a red card, Ham. It's just a red card. Red cards aren't good, right? Red cards are bad.
I mean, you got 2 ones for 1 that steal your that draw you cards in
people with lightning bolt.
Yeah,
red cards aren't good.
Clearly terrible. Anyway, I just find that wild because like that card is just pushed beyond belief, and the idea that it gets that we have another card that is so pushed that it completely cuts it out is wild. I know part of it is just how they line up mechanically, but still, it's nuts.
This one's 2 mana. The Ragavan's 1 mana too, and this card's still pushing it out.
2 mana unplayable. How do you do it? Like
it's nuts. Absolutely absurd. It's a lot of it is the power creep. I think we realize it specifically with Pioneer, where Pioneer is supposed to be more of like Pioneer's almost supposed to be a really hard Standard. Right, that's like usually what we want out of these formats. We want old Standard decks that were pretty decent, kind of grinding against each other, maybe like a rock paper scissors format, enough decks in every archetype, whatever. And I just feel like cards now are so much more powerful that like old cards they just don't do anything, right? Like
Yeah.
it's just like we could unban half of the modern ban list and nothing would change probably.
I think so. It would give some brewers some things to tinker with. So I think it would be in that positive, honestly. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be a variety of decks for like a couple weeks or like a week or something, and then once everyone realized, maybe more than half of the cards that got unbanned aren't good, and then okay, maybe these other cards are, it's kind of like the when Jace was unbanned, he was played for like a little bit, and then everyone was like, this card sucks, it costs 4 mana and it doesn't win the game. It's like, why am I? Were blue cards good ever? Anyone ever play blue cards? Were they good? It's like I feel like
usually they ban those.
Yeah, usually they ban those, and we're just like unbanning all these, and it's weird. Like it's weird when we're talking about banning every creature. It's like so nuts, right? Like we talked about Grief, Fury, like.
Right.
You can ban all the elementals. Modern might be a better place.
Free spells.
Yeah, free spells and mana.
Yep.
But yeah, unbans were cool, and maybe next time we'll see some bans. Maybe Eldraine will have Broco again, and we'll have an emergency.
We know Oko is somewhere else now.
Yes, it does not look like Oko is going to be on Eldraine even in creature form, because because there was an announcement from GenCon last weekend where Wizards actually unveiled a ton of new products. A ton. In fact, they were talking about sets that they are planning to release in 2026 that don't even have proper names yet, which is bonkers. I have never heard anything from WotC that went that far into the future. And you could tell, I got the impression listening to the presentation. So there were a number of members of the Wizards staff. There were 3 folks who kind of took the brunt of the presentation. And one of them was Mark Rosewater, the head designer, and then there was also Athena Froelich, who heads up Universes Beyond, and then Ian Adams, who is like the head of Arena. And so that was really cool. But it was funny, you could tell, like, I got the impression. I mean, Mark Rosewater is a pretty excitable guy by at least when he's speaking about Magic. Like, you can tell he's very passionate. But you could, like, I got the sense in watching the presentation and listening to his delivery. That he was like relieved and just so jazzed to be able to share these things with people, because he usually has to keep that like under wraps. He like, so all this stuff that he's working on 2-3 years down the future, he has to keep a lid on it, and you can tell that I suspect that doesn't come naturally to him, which I get. I absolutely get that. But anyway, that was a lot of fun. But the other thing about the presentation that I want to touch on before we dive into the nitty gritty, because there were a ton of individual products that I do want to touch on. Because we now kind of know what 2024 looks like and beyond. And the big takeaway for me is that the 3 people who were on the presentation, the head designer for Magic the Gathering, cool, makes sense. Dude's in the middle of it, kind of seeing the big picture. And then it was Universes Beyond and Arena were the 3 pillars of the game that were presented at this presentation about the future of the game. I think, as a big-time Arena fan, that bodes very well for the future of that platform. Which, as somebody who has seen, digital platforms for Magic come and go and just genuinely get just abandoned or discarded, I'm very glad to see that Arena has a future that they're planning on cultivating and really diving into, which is awesome. So that was one of my big takeaways just from the format of the show to begin with. That said, there was also Universes Beyond. So if anybody out there is not a huge fan of other properties being injected into Magic, we have terrible news for you. But for the rest of us who just want to have our fun, let's get silly. Yeah. So, I mean, before we get into the nitty gritty, were there any other takeaways that you guys wanted to discuss from just the kind of the presentation as a whole?
Yeah, I thought it was awesome that you're right, they picked somebody from Arena, because I actually hadn't noticed that until I think you mentioned it. I think around the same time when they were like announcing it, that they had one person essentially from all the big parts of MTG, and it's pretty awesome. I actually I really enjoy these panels, and I really enjoy hearing from everyone that kind of has to do with developing the game and making the game. And it's just always really cool to kind of like, you know, listen to people and like their opinions and like how they made their decisions and kind of like keep things going. You know, because they, you know, we have to remember like, well, they're 3 years down the line always. So, I mean, you know, they pretty much have like what Apple's game plan, where Apple was always like a few years ahead of everybody. And they were just like, oh, this is what we're going to do here. And that's kind of like how MTG's been for a while. So it's really cool to finally kind of they actually unveiled more than what they normally unveil. And I think that they've been doing that more and more as the last couple of years have gone by.
Yeah.
But for me, it's huge. I really like seeing, like, it was a lot of news in one day for a whole lot of different reveals. And I really think that adds to the hype for the game. One, it tells the players there's increased longevity. This is what we're doing. This is the game plan. Here's what to expect. Not just, you know, random planes that are going to pop up like out of nowhere with a year's notice, right? Like, this is their route. This is what they're doing. Which, you know, as a player who's played the game for a very long time, that's what I want to see, right? I don't want to see, why are we only revealing 1 year of what's going out? Like, I want to know what's in the long haul, because I'm in it for the long haul, right?
Absolutely.
But also definitely the arena announcements, right? Like, hello, we all make Magic content. It's important for us to understand what's going on with arena in the future. And the biggest piece of news for me, at least from someone who's played paper Magic for a long time, is that finally there's a decision. We're going to get closest to Tournament Pioneer by the end of 2024. Like, here's a date, because the last we heard, there was no date. Right. There was no determination of when we were going to get closest to Tournament Pioneer. And there's some notable cards that they said it's going to be printed in 2023 for Arena, right? Notably, Cons of Tarkir block.
Yep.
And the whole, I'm not block, the set, but the whole set, including fetch lands, right? And while fetch lands is not important for Pioneer because they're banned in that format, it brings them to Historic, where, hey, it doesn't have to take me 3 minutes out of my match to shuffle my deck after I fetch, right? Which is great. Love it. And, you know, Cons, first of all, was just a fun set to play in paper. So for those of you who haven't had a chance to play it and who will get a chance to play it, you'll understand the love for Abzan or Mardu, right, for the first time. Because it was a blast of a draft format. But hello, we're going to get to see Dig Through Time, Treasure Cruise, finally brought to Explorer to make it more towards Pioneer. And we've been notably missing those cards for some time.
Finally. Those are like two cards that I just like. I'm still really salty about not being. Obviously, it makes sense now, but I'm still really salty about them not being in the anthologies because, like, man, I really just like wanted those so bad in Explorer, and like, it's just, you're right. It's good knowing that that format is at least going to be closer than we get. Nice.
No, I just get a kick out of that because of what they've been doing in the past to bring older sets on with like Amonkhet and Kaladesh. They gave us a remastered draft experience, which was a set that included, you know, it was kind of a boiled down, you know, set of cards that was actually kind of an amalgam of multiple sets that were all kind of smashed together from like that same block, or from, you know, I don't know, were they doing blocks still with, anyway, yeah, I think they were still, I think Kaladesh was still considered a block, right? Anyway.
Yeah, Kaladesh had, no, I think Kaladesh was two sets.
Yeah, Kaladesh and then Aether Revolt, right?
Yeah, Cons was one of the last ones that had 3 sets in it, if not the last one that had 3 sets in it, I think.
Gotcha. Yeah, and with Amonkhet, they took some of like the invocations and you know, injected those as well, and they made kind of a digital version of the paper set, and so it was kind of cool because in this announcement they specifically said we're no longer doing remastered. We're just giving you the whole thing. It's like, thank you. That's what we needed. So
we do have one more remastered though. We have Ravnica remastered.
Yes.
Which is pretty cool, I think, to kind of get. I mean, I love Ravnica. I think the original Ravnica sets are just like still some of the best sets in Magic, and for me that was like one of the best standards of all time. And getting like a remastered set of potentially all the Ravnica sets is gonna be pretty cool.
Ravnica Remastered is gonna be paper. That isn't coming to Arena.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that is a paper.
But either way, it's cool. Like I still think that it's cool that they're doing a remaster for it. I'm excited for it either way. And I thought it was coming to paper, but I didn't know if it was gonna come to
I don't believe
Arena like we got Shadows.
I don't believe it's coming to Arena. They said that they're going to be handling it like they did Dominaria Remastered, where it was kind of a like semi-premium product that was reprints that have occurred on this plane that they wanted to highlight and celebrate in kind of its own unique. If anything, like these remastered products in paper, and they did with Time Spiral as well, they're kind of like remixing, you know, kind of a theme. And in this case, they're taking all the different sets that have taken place on Ravnica. And we've gone back to Ravnica in 3 separate blocks now. So, I mean, there's a lot to work with. And they're going to be mixing that into one single, you know, product, and it'll be very interesting to see what makes the cut and what doesn't in that, and it'll be really interesting to see how it plays, because it has an opportunity to be a very dynamic and very interesting draft environment where you kind of get the best of each of the guilds. Like that could be awesome.
Yeah, another multicolored set that's fun to draft.
All right,
I am ready to open a full extended foil alternate art Sphinx's Revelation.
Ooh, you know that's going to be beautiful. Ooh, how about the Shocklands? You know the Shocklands, what if they went back to the OG artwwork or something like...
They are. OG artwork, old border.
Oh, are they?
They are.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, I can't wait, man. Like I remember the first time, remember when they first spoiled Temple Garden? Yeah. That was the first one that spoiled. Everyone just like pooped their pants. They were like, oh my God, dual lands are back. I can't believe they did this. Oh man. Like everybody was losing their mind. And it's just, this Temple Garden. Yeah. It's just so, it's just so beautiful. I love it. I love Ravnica. Ravnica's, you know, it was funny because, you know, I'm at the game store every day, and today someone was like asking about why it's called why is it called this? And it's like interesting that we went to Strixhaven and they had their own names, just like, you know, the guilds of Ravnica, but Ravnica has such a long lasting impact in the game that without Ravnica, who knows what we'd be calling 2-color pairs, right? Sure. We'd probably just be like green white. We would just stick to the colors more than anything.
What the Strixhaven ones are called?
Yeah, I don't even Silver Quill, Quandrix. So, anyways, Prismari.
And then Witherbloom,
Boros,
Lorehold, Anyway,
so anyways,
now the real question: can you name all 10 realms on Kaldheim? But anyway, let's
Nah, see, and
Nutvold
there's
is the one that you don't remember. Anyway,
see, they like tried to do it, but nothing can touch Ravnica, right? And
exactly.
We just show the lands, and these are like easily these are some of the best lands in the game. Yeah, right. Like these are like amazing, and it's exciting, especially in paper, because these cards are going to be reprinted. Obviously, Shocklands become way more, you know, easily accessible to people who want to play Pioneer and want to play Modern, and it's awesome all around. Just going to be fun to draft. You know what is coming to Arena though? What's that I'm actually pretty excited for is going to be Modern Horizons 3. They're putting the whole Modern Horizons set onto Arena, and man, I'm actually like so excited for it, because I know they're so polarizing, those sets, but as someone that enjoys powerful cards sometimes, I can't wait to play with these cards. And there's so many cards affecting Historic, right?
Oh yeah. Well, and it's funny because with Modern Horizons 3, that one coming to Arena is really interesting. I'm not surprised that we're seeing Modern Horizons 3. I mean, Modern Horizons 1 and 2 were both, as I understand it, commercial successes that did definitely increase kind of interest and attention on the Modern format. Whether that's a good or a bad thing, I will let all of you duke that out in the comments below. And while you're down there, please like and subscribe. But at the end of the day, like, they accomplished their goal of mixing up Modern and injecting new interest in that format. So of course they were going to do a third one. The thing that I find fascinating is that they are bringing it to Arena. They're bringing the entire set to Arena. I love the fact that they're just kind of not messing around with the kind of these like half in, half out remastered digital versions of stuff. Because like with historic or with what was it, Modern Horizons 2? Or no, with Jumpstart, they did like the historic anthology.
Yeah, they have some of the modern cards in there, right?
Some, but not others. It was a whole thing, and I really love that this time they're just like, nope, we're just programming it onto Arena right from jump, and I really find that encouraging for a couple of reasons. One, that gives us a way to draft it without having to shell out, premium, price at the LGS. Who knows what the draft is going to cost on Arena? I'm assuming it's the same as all the standard Premier drafts, but anyway. It'll give us an opportunity to experiment with that, and then we'll be able to play with these cards in Historic and Historic Brawl, which could get silly and fun and high-powered, and that's great. The other thing that I love about the fact that this whole set is coming to Arena, that to me looks like a tell that Wizards is preparing to bring Modern to the client at some point down the road. Because it's one of those things where it's like, okay, sure, we're not ready to do it in the next probably 2, 3, 4 years. But if that's the end goal, this set is going to have to be there. So let's just put it in now and see what happens. And we already have, like Lord of the Rings and whatnot, already in Historic doing what it's doing to Modern. So why not bring more of these in there and see what happens? Anyway,
I think we'll get something. I agree with everything you said, and I think that that's definitely telling. Specifically, I remember you were like, "Hey, have you guys answered the Wizards email recently?" In the poll, they asked us about if we wanted to see formats like Modern. And what I think is going to happen is that they're going to do Modern like they did Pioneer, which is they're going to be like, "Hey, come play Current, or come play Present, or come play Today," whatever Modern Magic is for them, they want to alternatively call it. And as these sets slowly come onto Arena, then eventually it's gonna be like, oh look, like 80% of the Modern card pools on Arena, we're so close to actually being able to play Modern, and the cards that are missing aren't even that important, right? It's like, oh, we can play, still play like 10 or 15 different decks. And I think with seeing like Primeval Titan, Sword of Fire and Ice, we've seen all these awesome cards. Special preview by Carlo. We've seen all these cards get added onto Arena for historic sake. But what if we're adding all these cards to eventually have all the formats on Arena? It's just that they, obviously as a business, they can't just throw all the cards on. Sure. And it would probably be like a week-long update for everybody. And, we can't, listen, I got YouTube content to make. I can't be taking off a week off Magic and tournaments to run, so we can't be taking that time off. But in all seriousness, like I agree. I think that this is the moment where they say, listen, we're going to put all the cards on. And we're just taking a little bit longer to do it, obviously, because we don't have enough to already do a lot of things. So just be patient. We're going to throw you guys some bones, and it's going to be fun. And you're going to be able to draft it. You're going to be able to do all these other things with all these different cards from different sets. And it's really cool. I'm excited to see what happens in the next couple years, because like you guys said, like with this announcement, we have dates. We have a real time when we know. What if at some point they say, oh, this is the date for Modern to be on Arena? And we already have that alternative Modern format where you can play most of the Modern cards by themselves. So that way you don't feel like you're getting destroyed by like alchemy cards like some people feel like in Historic, which is why Explorer is so popular. Explorer is so popular because it's as close to Pioneer as you get, and it's a paper format. So if we can get another paper format somewhere where people can test even more and have quicker games and, make more decks, it's just like, I'm really excited for Arena. I think that this was the first time in a long time that they really were like, this is what we're doing, and we're showing you everything that we can. And I think for Arena, we get so many streams and so many weekly MTG things, and it always kind of feels like nothing's really like connecting. And I think for once, when we got all these announcements, when you looked at it overall for Arena, it all made sense. And it's cool. I can't wait to play Modern on Arena. I'm looking forward to that so much.
I can tell you, I'm excited for Modern Horizons 3 from a limited perspective, because, it's going to be a premium set in paper, however you want to call it, premium.
That's a huge point.
And as long as it's the same dollar amount as the standard sets in Arena, it's increased accessibility and more people drafting the set, right? Like if your LGS isn't hosting a bunch of Modern Horizons 3 drafts, you just hop on Arena and we can figure out the format there, which sounds great to me. And you can do it at a fraction of the premium price on Arena. So,
yeah,
you know,
just like Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings was the same way. Lord of the Rings is, you know, $200, probably more for set boosters. And yeah, on Arena right now, you can draft it in like every single thing, right? I think for like a week or last week or something, like you get to open the One Ring for like, for $100, you get so many cards. And you can just have so many Lord of the Rings cards. And yeah, it's going to be, man, it's going to be awesome.
It didn't even occur to me too. So Carla mentioning that, the fact that we're going to be able to draft Modern Horizons 3, that means a whole bunch of players who weren't necessarily going to invest in the set in paper are going to get to play with them and get excited about them.
And go to the store and purchase.
And they might go
products.
to the store, or they might buy some packs to maybe just flesh out some commander decks with some of the cool new things that they found. Or it's a way to increase hype. It all feeds itself, right? Like you get the Arena players interested in the paper, you get the paper players interested in the Arena. Everybody's happy. This is great. So
we're finally realizing that. I think Wizards is finally like, hey, you know, like people love Arena, people love paper. What is it that we can do to get them together? And it's something that everyone's been asking for.
Absolutely.
Paper formats.
I love
you put more ways to play Magic, and you put more of these paper formats everybody loves. Everyone's going to go more to Arena because Arena is more of a visibly and mechanically smoother program than its long distant cousin.
Sure.
In like an MTGO, where people who know how to use MTGO really love MTGO, but like just to like learn it's like a little, at least for me, I played it for a few months and I couldn't really get into it.
I want to set the record straight on that. The people who love MTGO love Magic the Gathering and are willing to put up with MTGO. Nobody loves MTGO. People love Magic and they want to be able to play as much Magic as humanly possible, and MTGO is one means by which you can do that. The software is rough. It is clunky. It's just old. It's just outdated. It's really the bottom line. You know, and I know it has its defenders. At the end of the day, it is a way you can play Magic. I love Magic too. Do what you got to do to play Magic. Like, no judgment. It's fine. I'm not attacking the software. I'm just saying, like, it is old. It's time to get an updated digital version, and I'm glad that they see the opportunity in Arena, and they, you know, Arena has the player base, it has the community, has the content creators. So let's flesh that out. And, you know,
yeah, it's gonna be a big deal when, you know, Arena finally is the final transformation where it has like all the Magic on it, and everyone's playing a lot of Arena. And I feel like, you know, like Arena has its ups and downs. There's a lot of people that bash on it, but you know, for my money, I think that the economy is decent, and I think that overall, you can get decks for pretty cheap if you know, just invest a little bit or just spend some time drafting for, you know, a few months, kind of honing your skills, getting better at the game on top of that. And I think that, you know, it's the most accessible way, and I think that this is obviously for now the best client that we're going to have in terms of, like I said, being able to smoothly play Magic, not feeling like you have to do every single individual thing and it looks clunky, and there's like this little ding sound that happens every time you make a move, and then like when a creature dies it's like, oh, it's like a ghost sound, and you're like, this is weird. You're like,
the
what
combat
is this,
damage to the player sound is a wah, wah, wah. Like, why is that? Like, I don't get it.
But anyway, I'm glad. I'm glad overall that Arena's kind of, it feels like Arena's getting the same attention that paper is getting, because in all honesty, every time we hear about something, we never get excited about Arena. It's like, oh, here's paper, here's this next paper product, here's this next paper product. Oh, we put some alchemy cards on Arena. Oh, you know, obviously the standard set's coming on Arena, and that's really about as far as we ever hear. And yeah, this is just awesome news. I mean, the fact that they're willing to put every card on,
absolutely,
potentially at the end of the day, is amazing.
It looks like that's what the direction they're moving, and that's really encouraging. Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of some other cards that are going to be coming out in paper and Arena, we have the next 4 standard sets that are going to be coming out next year, and I kind of want to go through each of those and kind of get both of your impressions on these, because they're interesting. There are some new takes on some old tropes, and they're kind of going into some interesting genres, I suppose,
Yeah.
maybe for lack of a better word. That seems to be the theme for 2024. And the first one that we're going to be receiving in 2024, this is after we get Wilds of Eldraine and Caverns of Ixalan this year. So the following standard set is actually going to be Murders at Karlov Manor. And there's going to be some kind of clue crossover for this, which makes a lot of sense. This is like the cozy murder mystery set where it all takes place like within one manor, and it's on Ravnica. And so it's a genuine murder mystery story. They said that the gameplay is going to somehow involve mysteries that the players have to solve. Exactly what the heck that means, I have no clue. But I'm intrigued to see how that mechanically represents itself. If it's just clue tokens, that will be a missed opportunity. I'm sure there's something there. But it's interesting, too, because this is taking place on Ravnica. This is a standard set that's going to take place on Ravnica, and the guilds are not the focus. You know, which I think is really clever, because this will have been, the fourth standard set that has taken place on Ravnica, and so far, every single time we've gone back to Ravnica, it has been about the guilds. But this time, presumably, it's going to be about the characters and the environment. The guilds are a presence in the world. I'm sure that they'll be relevant in one way or another, just just as part of the setting, but they're not the point. I find that very interesting.
I'm ready for the storyline because, just in general, post Phyrexian War, but also playing that had been rebuilding after War of the Spark. What the heck's going on Ravnica? Listen, we know that Niv Mizzet is still 5-color, and Niv Mizzet is back and is running amok on the plane, which is fine, but it's also rebuilding because the Phyrexians destroyed a bunch of stuff. So who's getting murdered this time?
Great question.
I guess is what I'm looking for. But
I'm going with the Eldrauzis as the murderers. What if it's eventually it ends up being the Eldrazi?
Jeez, I mean, I'm interested to see because, I'm interested to see how this murder mystery interacts with their Omen Path story arc. Sure. Somebody's coming from some other plane and murdering folks is what it seems like, without, learning about the lore. Sure. But that's what I'm most excited for. And, how that's going to lead them to other planes to try to maybe finish up this murder mystery.
Do you think it'll be like a planeswalker murders? Like, do you think the planeswalkers or people who can go through the Omen Path will be the ones who are getting murdered to kind of like juice it up a little bit? So then it's like maybe it is a planeswalker, or, maybe it's, we don't know who it could be now at this point.
Maybe it's former planeswalkers that no longer have a spark who are trying to assert dominance on the plane. We don't know what happened to Jace, right? Post Phyrexian War, they planeswalked away. Vraska is nowhere to be seen, but I don't know about you, but maybe one of these other standard sets we're about to talk about might just feature a Gorgon of some kind.
There's a chance of that. Yeah, there's a high likelihood of that. A particular Gorgon whose character design clearly passes the silhouette test. Yes, that is going to be a thing. One last note on Murders at Karlov Manor. I'm hoping that it is just it'll be interesting to see what kind of intrigue and how I love the note too that Ravnica was like, I get the image that they just finally cleaned everything up after War of the Spark, and then the Phyrexians showed up. It's like, come on, what do we need to do? But I want to believe that it wasn't Orzhov or Dimir, whoever the killer is. I don't want it to be the obvious ones. I want it to be Aurelia, but she had a good reason, or that's what I want to. That I'm intrigued to see where they go with that. The opportunities there for that creative team to create a murder mystery in this setting is very real and very cool. But yes, so the next one that we're going to be receiving, the next set that we're going to get in 2024 after Murders at Karlov Manor, is a set that I am so excited for. I have no words, and I don't know why. It's not even in a genre I particularly enjoy, but the moment I saw the promotional artwork, I was like, all of this, hook it to my veins. And that is Outlaws of Thunder Junction. Yippee-ki-yay. We're doing it. We're going cowboys. It's official. They're doing an Old West themed set, which honestly I'm surprised it took them so long, but here we are. Yeah, we're going full on Old West, and they've also confirmed that the set is going to feature villains. That is going to be the primary characters that we follow. And in the promotional artwork, there is like a team shot of a bunch of people walking away from what looks like a sunset. It might be sunrise, I'm not sure. And they all have, most of them have very distinct silhouettes. And there's one character behind them that, which is obviously Oko. I can't even bear the lead. It's just like, no question. There's the lopsided crown over top of a cowboy hat and raven feathers coming off the shoulders. It is the most, like, definitely Oko is on Thunder Junction. We know this now. Holy cow. And then the silhouette, it clearly shows a demon that looks like Rakdos. We got flame in the head, and the general shape it looks like Rakdos. And there are a number of humanoid figures, a couple of which are not super clear. One of which, though, we suspect is probably Jace, because right next to him is clearly Vraska.
Yeah, the Gorgon head definitely. This is Stone Sisters of Death, which we haven't seen for 20 years or something, just randomly appearing in Cowboy Land. But
yeah, I mean, how many legendary Gorgons could they be? Yeah, exactly. Dude, if they really pull the Sisters of Stone Death out of the archives just to do the bait and switch on the poster for this set, kudos. Like, you know, I'm impressed.
Yeah, the one figure has to be Jace, because it's got Jace's like shoulder pads under the cloak. You can kind of see it, unless they want to bring it up as a different character. But who's the goblin? Is it Squee?
I think that's Tiny Bones.
Oh, you think it's Tiny Bones?
Yeah, I don't think it's Goblin at all, because the joints look kind of bony.
Like skeleton-y?
Oh, yeah.
Look a little, yeah. So I believe that's Tiny Bones. And then there's the other humanoid figure whose silhouette is not particularly distinct, but based on another promo art, piece of promo art they showed, there is a figure who looks a lot like old Rutstein from Innistrad. Right.
Yep, with bones on the back. Yep.
So what about the demon?
That's probably who. Demon's probably Rakdos.
You think, or do you think maybe it's? Do you think it's Rakdos? I was thinking maybe Razaketh. Is Razaketh still around? I can't remember if some of these.
I thought Liliana took care of Razaketh, but I could be mistaken.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I think she went on kind of a murder spree and got rid of a lot of the demons, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I believe it's Rakdos. Because if you look at Rakdos' character design, he has here, let me pull it up. He has like flames coming out of his brow. That is something that is always part of his design, which is not always true for other demons.
Gotcha.
And in that silhouette, you can clearly see what look like flames coming out of coming between the demon's horns. So I'm pretty sure that's Rakdos.
God, I love Rakdos so much.
Dude, Rakdos is sick.
Rakdos is sick.
And that's the thing. So my big thing coming out of the March of the Machine story arc is I want to know what happened to Jason Vraska, and I fully anticipate that they are completed and they're going to be the new Praetors. That is something that I've been saying since that story dropped. Since we knew how ambiguous their end was in that story arc. I am shocked that we are seeing them already, given how quickly that arc just resolved. But at the same time, we don't know how big of a part they have in this set. It might just be a cameo as a teaser for future things. Or maybe they're super involved and they're some of the primary... They could be the protagonists in this set, because it looks like we're following the bad guys here, which...
And who's left with a spark and who doesn't have one anymore? Nobody knows. We can tell from Wizards announcements, because they said they were going to be doing less Planeswalkers in the future standard sets. Like where we see one, maybe two per set in terms of cards. But even in the storylines, there's going to be less that exist. So did Jason Vraska just lose their sparks and now they are these completed badass cowboy villains? Is Oko the ringleader but was able to planeswalk off of Eldraine? Who knows?
No idea.
Let's find out.
I can't wait.
What I find interesting is this is coming out around the same time that Capenna came out. So I feel like we're going to have a yearly like gimmicky set where I love Westerns though, but we went from like gangsters to Westerns to like whatever the next thing's gonna be next year. I can't think of it. But yeah, Mouseketeers.
What about Noir or
Yeah, I was thinking like I guess like be like almost like a gun related thing, just because like the gangsters didn't have like miniguns, but that's like what we expect, and then Cowboys we expect like revolvers, right? I think do they have guns in the picture? They just have daggers. They just have daggers.
Did they really not have miniguns in New Capenna though? I mean, let's be real. Like I know the arc spitter and the frazzle cannon technically shoot lightning, but come on, like that's anyway.
So what are we thinking for next year?
It's a magic minigun, okay?
Or do we know already? We should know already, right? For next, or not next year, but the year after that. Do we know? Maybe there's something that they gave away that we knew. Maybe what the next gimmicky set's going to be.
We know that they're going to be doing. There's volleyball, which is the code name, which is a space opera set that might be in the same slot. There's also a set that they've announced that is going to be a death race that takes place over 3 planes. So some crazy engineer, I can't wait to find out more about this, honestly, because it's just, the idea is so nuts, I need to know more. Apparently, they created a racetrack using the Omen paths that actually crosses through 3 separate planes.
Yeah, that's for tennis.
Yes, yeah. And it's, that's some wackadoo nonsense that they definitely could not have done pre-Omen paths. So that could be very interesting and very silly, depending on, well, I don't know how straight they're going to play it, if it's going to be like Mad Max style where it's very like gritty and realistic, or if they just go
wacky races
and do like some Rainbow Road Mario Kart nonsense. I don't know. I'm very intrigued to see what, like, we know very little about that.
Listen, I want to see Cowboy Yoko on a Harley Davidson fight in the wacky races.
I'm in.
Like, let's go.
I'm done. Let's go. Absolutely, 100%.
Rakdos pretty much playing Bowser at this point.
Yes.
Like on like whatever little car, and then just like driving on like a rainbow road in what's it called, Eldraine.
Yeah.
Probably be like the best place they could do it in. I think we talked about this today at work. It was like, what are the 3 sets? Probably Kaladesh, Neon Dynasty, and then the one set that we don't know, that we haven't been to yet, could potentially be a set that we saw on like the battles.
Could be. Yep.
So maybe they're going to bring one of those sets into the limelight here with
maybe we're going to see
like the vehicle set.
Absolutely.
What those sets are, right? Like Kamigawa had the vehicles, a very heavy vehicle theme. Kaladesh obviously was the first set of vehicles, and whatever this next plane we're going to see in tennis is probably going to be connected to vehicles too, if we're doing like a death race style. So kind of interesting. I mean, you could almost tell what each set's going to have in it in terms of like the mechanics a little bit, just because of the themes outside of this Cowboy set. I have no idea what we're going to see. Maybe Lasso 1, Lasso 2, or horses. All right, here's horses, or I don't know. I can't think of any. They use tumbleweeds.
I saw somebody suggest on Twitter, I wish I remember the user so I could give them proper citation, but they suggested that the Oko Planeswalker has a plus that can turn something into a horse with crew 1, which I thought was amazing. I love that idea.
Yes,
I hope it's a minus this time, but yes, that would be awesome.
Vehicle dash elk.
Exactly. I'm into it. I think that's fantastic.
It's cool though. It's I think it's a cool. They're still diving into new territory, and I think that's awesome. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, no, I think you're right. I think that they did tease that in the death race in tennis, there's a 3rd plane that we're going to, or that there are 2 planes that we've been to before, and one that they've talked about, and it has appeared on cards, but we've never had a full set. And yeah, it easily could be like Segovia or Vryn or Urgamon or something, like any one of those, which I'll be intrigued to see. But yeah, so then the next standard sets that we have, so the next standard set that we have after Outlaws of Thunder Junction is a set called Bloomburrow, which it's a set where all of the humanoid protagonists are in fact woodland creatures. So this is the set where one of the big promotional arts that they teased some time ago was a mouse with a like leaf as a cloak, wielding a sword, facing off against a wolf. So to give you an idea of kind of what they're going with here. And they showed a couple more pieces of promotional art. There was like a squirrel necromancer, maybe it was a chipmunk, in one piece, which looked pretty cool. Like it's one of the, I look at that, it's like, okay, I don't know what your deal is, but you're Golgari and you're my next commander. So that's you know, I'm intrigued by that set as well. So I don't know, what were your guys' take on that? We don't know any cards yet, but what are
more squirrels? I mean, give us more squirrels, more rats. Hello, like sign us up.
100%.
This is awesome.
Reprint. Let's go.
More squirrels for Chatterfang.
Me, squirrel nest. Hello.
Yeah. This is cool. It kind of reminds me a little bit of something we'll probably talk about here in a second, but it kind of reminds me a little bit of Lorwyn. In like a way where Lorwyn had a little bit of like that creature fantasy to it, kind of like a cross between like that and like we're just talking about right now, like random squirrels and some of these other themes that we've seen in the past. I was definitely shocked that the artwork wasn't from Eldraine, because I think the first time we saw that artwork, we all thought that it was from Eldraine because it kind of got dropped with the Eldraine stuff. So it's interesting to find out that it's its own plane, and once again another original idea that's not Universes Beyond, not like Horizons. It's them kind of like dipping into a little bit different territory, like you're saying, the quote unquote humanoid. We're so used to seeing humans on every single plane. Well, not Bloomburrow.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by the set. We don't really know much at this point. The one thing that I want to find out more about is just the mechanics of the world itself and what kind of stories they're telling in it. And this is coming from, a place of somebody who read a lot of books when he was in high school and is in his mid to late 30s, as of this recording. The aesthetic of that reminds me of the Redwall novels. Like the works of Brian Jacques, it's almost identical, and they were huge. So I am very curious how different Bloomburrow is as a world, because honestly, the artwork that they depicted could easily have been covers on those books back in the day. So I'm curious to see how it differs. I assume that it does, because right now we just have a couple of pictures. But if it ends up being a full copy paste of Brian Jacques, many novel, catalog, I'm going to be really frustrated. Because it's one of those things. It's like, when it comes to creativity, if you're going to copy your homework, at least change a couple of things around. That's ultimately what and this is a premature criticism. I don't know enough about this set to line the parallels up. It's just, those books were all about mice people fighting like rat and badger people. It was dead on. Like, if you go and look at any of those like novel covers, they easily could be artwork based on what we've seen so far from Bloomburrow. So I am hopeful that I'm just being a little, this is a knee-jerk reaction, and the world is in fact dramatically different, and I'm excited to explore it and find out those differences. But anyway, that was one of those where I looked at it and just like, ooh, really? Okay. Because I can't help but wonder if the estate of Brian Jacques might have a thing or two to say to their lawyers about that set. When it comes out. Anyway. But yeah, we the only thing we have on that is just some promotional artwork. So the next set that we're going to get after that, so I believe this is going to be the holiday set for 2024. We have Duskmourn, House of Horror. This is a plane that is a house, apparently. And this set is going to be modeled after what they're calling modern horror, which honestly, in looking at some of the images, I don't quite, and maybe this is just me being ignorant to genres. I don't understand really what the difference is between modern horror and like eldritch horror based on some of the images that I've seen. Yeah. Like, it looks very much like that kind of Lovecraftian, like psychological, existential stuff that I associate with that style of horror, which we've done like with the Eldrazi and whatnot. So I don't know. I'm very curious as to what differentiates Duskmourn from some of the other horror genres that they've leaned into. That said, the aesthetic of it looks very different from, say, Innistrad or some of these other planes. So we'll see. And honestly, creepy mansion world, that can be done. Like there's cool stuff to discover there. So
yeah, my first look at it, I was like, when they revealed the initial what it is, a house, right? I'm like, is this kind of like New Capenna, where Capenna, I don't even think it's the plane. It's just city on a plane we don't know. And so is this the same thing? Is it a random horror house that exists on a plane we do or don't know? And maybe that's what explains why the initial artwork shows something similar to what we've seen before. Or it's just this house that's full of things that everybody's scared of. So are we going to get something that looks like an Eldrazi because they're fearful of it? Are we going to see... for me, the face art for Duskmourn kind of looks like a Traxa, but more like flaily rather than like, I don't know, Phyrexian metallic, however you want to call that.
Sure.
It's more insect-like. It just looks like a big moth house. It's definitely quite frightening. It definitely reaches out. And it's kind of like grabs your attention.
Does it scare you, Hollywood? Does it scare you?
It doesn't scare me, but it's like one of those things where it's like, what is... If you saw that in your room, you'd be like, kill it. Kill it immediately. Grab the electric fly killer that I have.
All the Exorcists, either.
Yeah, shock it to death. But I think it's going to be interesting. Maybe it's a set. So, obviously, like I said, like a lot of cards every day. And I'm always like, ooh, wouldn't it be cool if we had more horrors? Wouldn't it be cool if we had more nightmares, just like in old Odyssey block and Torment, in some of these older sets where these cards didn't really get too much of a shine? How about minions? Are we going to see a return to some of these old MTG creature types that we haven't seen in a long time? And I think this is the perfect set to be like, here's the nightmare set, here's the horror set, and maybe this is the actual house where maybe bad things come from that spread to maybe other planes. Or this could be like a home where people have nightmares and it ends up at Duskmourn, and now you got to fight your way out of Duskmourn, and it's not even like a real place. It's just like a dream world. It could just end up being, Inception. I think that with this artwork, it's so ominous, and you guys are right. It's definitely like definitely has vibes of Eldrazi, some of the same type horror that we've seen, but I'm excited to maybe get a full horror or nightmare set, and just some really cool cards overall. I'm excited. I mean, I'm not necessarily one that's like a fan of horror, but I mean, I think it's pretty awesome. And if this is like a land, I don't know what the land does. That's all I keep thinking when I look at it. I'm like, or maybe it's a creature land. Maybe we have more creature lands just like we have in Eldraine. Maybe this is the other cycle of the allied creature lands that we haven't seen for a while. It could be anything like that. So it's, there's always just like so much speculation when we see art, but this one's definitely like really cool, and just another original place. We spent the last 3 years home base, chilling on Ravnica's couch, watching Netflix, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, looks like we're finally hitting some new places, and I think it's really, really cool. One thing that we touched upon a lot, I think, in the podcast recently is that when these sets come out, the standard that exists now is going to be around when these sets end up making their release. So it's going to be really interesting to see what game-breaking or consistently powerful mechanics these sets have that end up seeing more play or add to what already exists in standard. Because by the time Duskmourn or whatever comes out, like, the mana bases in standard are going to be like perfect. You're going to be able to pretty much play like whatever you want, and it's going to be really interesting to see what rises to the top from all these new cards. And I'm excited about all this stuff. It's just cool. It's for once, I don't feel like I'm just like getting hit with the same thing again, and it's cool to really get this freshness, right? This freshness back into standard and Magic storyline, back into that mainstream feel where it's like, we don't have to talk about Jace. We don't have to talk about Gideon. We don't have to talk about this. And it's like, all right, cool. Finally, we're going back home to original plans, and I think that's something that MTG has been kind of missing. Over the last couple of years. We feel like maybe it's product fatigue sometimes, but maybe it's just that we're just seeing the same people, seeing the same characters, and we just need a break and kind of something that wiggles it out and makes it feel fresh and original.
I think you're on something. Yeah.
And Duskmourn will be the newest set released for when standard rotation will happen.
Yep. Yeah, we're actually going to leave all the cards that we pretty much have right now, right, including like Dominaria United, all Obi-Wan, all those sets will be leaving as well. So Duskmourn coming in means we're going to have, a smaller standard again until standard reboots for another 3 years or 2 years after that.
Is it Duskmourn or Bloomburrow, actually? I think Bloomburrow would mark the rotation.
Is it Bloomburrow?
It only shows up to quarter 3. So Duskmourn should be where we're at now with Eldraine's release. That would prompt rotation.
Okay, that's September release.
Okay.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because they don't show quarter 4 in 2024 in that plan.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I do not have that image in front of me, but yeah, okay.
I gotcha. But yeah, it's gonna be it's pretty cool. I'm excited for it. Like I said, just more original places. And on top of that, guys, something that we haven't touched on yet is all the Universes Beyonds that are being added next year as well. With the first one here that I'm excited about, I don't know about you guys, but Fallout. Yeah. It's going to be really, really cool to see what happens with Fallout. Kind of what they end up doing with the cards. Obviously, we're probably going to see power armor. Probably going to see some weapons in the game. Going to maybe see vault dwellers, the people who we've seen as like kind of like faceless entities in the game for so long. Maybe like the original Fallout 1 characters. Maybe some Deathclaws, probably mutants, bottle cap. Yeah. They'll probably be like a bottle cap artifact that taps and draws a card and then deals you. Wait, I'm sorry. Wrong set. Getting flashbacks here, guys. But in all seriousness, I think that I'm excited for Fallout. How do you guys feel?
I think it's a neat setting.
Are we getting nukes?
Yeah. Nukes, yeah, mini nukes, which make absolutely no sense if you stop and think about it. But whatever, they're fun. Fallout is one of those franchises that's been around for like as long as gaming, it practically like as long as mainstream gaming's been a thing, Fallout has existed. And prior to Fallout 3 being released, a number of years ago now, but prior to Fallout 3, like Fallout was kind of this older game that I don't know about you guys, but like I had friends who played it and kept telling me how great it was and told me I should get into it someday, even though I myself hadn't experienced. And then Fallout 3 came around, Bethesda kind of rebooted it and brought it back into the limelight. And with 3 and 4, 76, New Vegas, all that jazz, they've made it relevant again, and it's become this kind of cultural touchstone, and I think there's a lot of crossover between Fallout and Magic, so I think that's one that makes just a ton of sense. I think it's cool. Like it's a cool setting, and the mechanics could line themselves up nicely. I know throughout Magic's history we've had we've had cards like Tawnos' Coffin, and there's like the Wanderer's Staff or something. It's like a really old like 5th Dawn card that's not very good, but it can exile a creature and then bring it back at the end step. And there are cards that can give you protection from stuff, and they're themed around like getting like tucked away and staying safe while hazardous things are going on. And I'm wondering if there will be that mechanical identity in the Fallout products. I don't know. We'll see. I'm intrigued to see how it goes. If there isn't at least one incredible board wipe in that set, I will be disappointed. Just saying.
Ooh, reskinned Obliterate.
I'd be okay with that. Yep.
Be pretty cool.
Think that's fitting, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and there are a couple of other Universes Beyond products. The other one that I failed to put on our prep sheet that I'd be remiss if I didn't mention is Jurassic World. I say Jurassic World specifically because they are like in the announcement they made a point of, every single time it came up they said Jurassic World, so apparently that is the official like brand name for that franchise now. I associated it. I always think of it as Jurassic Park, but apparently Jurassic World is the official name. And that is actually going to be included as a booster add-in for Caverns of Ixalan. So there is not a Jurassic World booster pack or Jurassic World commander deck that you can buy. But if you buy set boosters and collector boosters of Caverns of Ixalan, you could open, Ian Malcolm. Actually, you know what? We haven't seen these cards yet, but I want Jeff Goldblum on a Magic card. If that's not included, I'm going to be disappointed.
That would be pretty awesome. Jeff Goldblum, Planeswalker.
Yes.
Be prepared, Hollywood, because last time there was an Ixalan pre-release at the comic book store. People showed up cosplaying as pirates. Now, I'm positive you will have multiple inflatable T-Rex costumes sitting playing the next Ixalan pre-release, especially with Jurassic World.
I love it.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. No, yeah, so yeah, I want Laura Dern, Sam Neill, and Jeff Goldblum. I need them on Magic cards. That's gotta happen. We've seen artwork for the T-Rex from Jurassic Park. Like that iconic moment at the very end where it's roaring in triumph and the banner is falling. Like that has been depicted. So presumably that'll be a card, which is exciting. I mean,
T-Rex Planeswalker.
It's the T-Rex. I mean, like, of course that's going to be one of them. So that's exciting. We'll see what happens. But honestly, that's one of those where they're modeling it similarly to the way they did the Transformers cards in Brothers War, where we have the set about artificers making giant war machines. Well, here is a crossover product where we have gigantic robotic war machines.
Yep.
Boom. Smash. Made perfect sense. Stick them together. Cool. Ixalan. There are dinosaurs everywhere. Done. It's a very straightforward, very easy mix. And it's exciting. I think it's going to be a lot of fun because that's one of those products that's just so nostalgic and fun for so many people that, it's going to be exciting.
Oh yeah, there's also we have Assassin's Creed, kind of dipping a little bit into the video games. We have Final Fantasy. I feel like we just have we're really starting to hit kind of like some pretty big IPs here outside of like the Lord of the Rings that we ended up hitting.
I find those interesting.
This year.
Yeah, Assassin's Creed is one of those properties when they announced it, my immediate thought was just like, oh yeah, okay. And it's one of those franchises that is out there, it is doing its thing. Like, they keep making them, and I know people keep playing them, but are there any, like, massive, like, Assassin's Creed fans that are, like, really invested in the story and the characters?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think what I find interesting about it is that this is going to be one that's actually closer to Magic. Right, it doesn't really have anything too outlandish about it. It's not Transformers. Even Jurassic Park's kind of closer to Magic too. I mean, we've had dinosaurs, but I think that this one is a little bit more on theme for Magic in terms of like what we're more used to. So I think maybe that also could have played a factor in it, where you kind of appeal to some of like the Assassin's Creed fans already with like kind of like your fantasy, a little bit like that rogue feeling, right? Carlo talked about pirates. Ixalan's kind of has that feeling too. So I think it's probably like a good call on them for something that's probably like, I mean, we got to remember, they've made like Assassin's Creed movies, like Assassin's Creed pretty big. It's definitely something that's really, really popular. But I think that if you're not like, I'd say that this one is going to be more niche than any of the other ones that we've seen so far, outside of maybe like some secret layers here and there, whereas like even Warhammer is like generally appealing to everyone that likes Magic. Obviously Lord of the Rings, but like Assassin's Creed I think is just more niche to like video games, which we also see with Final Fantasy, right? Like obviously everyone knows Final Fantasy, the games and everything, so it's kind of interesting to see them kind of dip into that side, and I feel like we haven't seen them dip into that side since Street Fighter. I think the last time was Street Fighter, right? And I'm expecting Resident Evil. Like, when are we going to get some of these Capcom, back to the Capcom again, besides like the Street Fighter stuff? I feel like like quarter 1, 2, 3, 2025 is probably like absurd. It's probably just like things that we can't even like think about right now or fathom, and hopefully more original ideas like tennis and that other unnamed volleyball.
Volleyball is the space opera one, yeah.
So they're going with sports now. This is where we're at.
Phone home.
Yep.
Badminton is going to be the next code name for a set.
There's also they do it in alphabetical order is the way they do it.
Gotcha.
And they did make it to Z. I don't remember. Anyway, I don't remember the last couple ones. I think yachting was Y, and I don't remember what Z was. But one of the sets that they've announced is going to be a Return to Lorwyn as well. So that's another one. We will be going back to Lorwyn, which is pretty exciting. Don't know.
Finally.
That's all we know about it. Like,
well,
but it is gonna happen.
Lorwyn was the first set that we experienced planeswalkers in Magic.
Yep.
So I'm curious if the end arc of the Omen Paths has them going back to Lorwyn to re-spark some walkers. That would be kind of a cool way to go if that's the first way we were introduced to the Planeswalker card type in Magic. Even though they weren't from Lorwyn. But that was the first time we saw them. And that was a major change to Magic, introducing that card type.
Yeah.
Y'all remember when I used to be able to play my Jace Bellerin to blow up my opponent's Jace the Mind Sculptor? Like, that was some crazy standard Magic. But
Magic rules used to be different for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Just to touch back real quick on the Final Fantasy part.
Yeah.
You know, I think, you know, that is such a large IP to acquire. You know, they are planning to do the same thing that they did with Lord of the Rings, specifically on Arena, with Final Fantasy. And it's interesting to me because Final Fantasy has its own card game. And so, and recent too, like within the last couple of years, like revitalized
we still get sets into the store. We got a set like last weekend.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
so it's interesting to me, like another TCG that exists. But, you know, going back to characters all the way to Final Fantasy 16, I believe the announcement said. And that's a lot of ground to cover for that franchise. Not saying it's larger than Lord of the Rings, which, you know, begs the question, do they do another one of for Final Fantasy? And
As far as storylines and content, Final Fantasy is probably significantly bigger than Lord of the Rings at this point.
Wow. Okay.
Because like Lord of the Rings was just occurred within. They took Fellowship to Return of the King, and that's what they did. Like you'll notice they didn't cover The Hobbit outside of just the one saga, you know, and they didn't cover pretty much anything from the Silmarillion except for a couple of saga nods. Like so. At the end of the day, like they were focused on just those 3 books or 6 books for all my other just epic massive nerds out there. Love you guys. Keep it going. But with Final Fantasy, they have individual stories that date all the way back to like the 90s or whatever. And you also have, or no, was it it was like the early 90s when like Final Fantasy 1 dropped. And they've been pumping out like new content, and each of those games are massive, and there are 2 MMOs within that, so that have their entire worlds. That's the other thing. Each story, for the most part, like each Final Fantasy game takes place on a unique world from one another. Right. So the amount of content so they're releasing an entire set for Final Fantasy. I guarantee you the day the full spoilers are released at some point next year when we finally see, or 2025, when we finally see every card in the Final Fantasy set, the first thing you are going to see on whatever social media platform we have all migrated to after Twitter tanks is, I can't believe X isn't in it. Whatever that is. Because everybody has their favorite character, their favorite item, their favorite, moments from Final Fantasy, and they don't cross over. Right. You know, I have a feeling we're going to see Final Fantasy VII represented very heavily, just because it was a huge moment, especially here in America, as the first 3D release on the PlayStation. That was a big deal, and people really locked onto that set, or onto that game. It was a kind of a cultural touchstone for people like, well, my age, our age, you know. It was, and a lot of the iconic moments from the franchise, like when they announced when they announced that they're doing it, they showed a picture of Sephiroth as the image. Like when you think of Final Fantasy, that's it. For me, my favorite Final Fantasy was Final Fantasy IX. I loved that game. I thought it was fantastic. I really hope we have a Vivi card, just because that little guy's adorable and he's the best. And I think a lot of people like that character. But at the end of the day, like, if we don't get a Steiner, I'm not going to be mad. Because, like, I understand he's, like, generic tank dude from this one variant of the game. How many generic tank dudes are there throughout that franchise that they're going to need to cram in here somewhere? Right. Like, you know?
We're going to have a Voltron of tank dudes.
I mean, I'm actually okay with that. I think that would be hilarious if they just grab like. Dude, could you imagine if they did team-ups for Final Fantasy similar to the way they did March of the Machine, but they do like characters based on their roles from various games and like cross them? That would be hilarious.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, so you mentioned the question of like, do they do a serialized one of one thing again? I don't know that they're gonna do one of one, but I'd be shocked if they don't do some kind of serialized push with it.
Right.
The one of one I think has to be special. I can't imagine they would do another one of one. Plus, I can't think of anything within Final Fantasy that really lends itself to that. That said, if they had like 100 serialized Mogs, you know, who's like the Moogle that appears in like every single game, and it doesn't really make sense, but whatever, he's there. I think that would be amazing. I just love that little guy, and I would love to get my hands on one, even if the card totally sucks. And that's ultimately the key with these Universes Beyond products. Even if the cards suck, people want them.
Yep.
You know, the cards don't have to be good to have mass market appeal. They also have proven that they're willing to print good cards into these, though, so they see play too.
Yeah.
One thing we forgot to mention with Assassin's Creed is that that's the first time we're going to see Beyond boosters.
Oh, yes.
Finally, what everyone's wanted, more products, more the 15th booster edition.
But haven't you heard the
Magic
boosters
the
are fun? It's booster fun.
Whoa, this is beyond a booster. This booster tastes like it's a real booster, but it's not. But I think overall, it's interesting that we're finally. I think we've been progressing to this since we know that Lord of the Rings was a full set. I'm still just laughing over Beyond Booster, but it's cool. It looks like they finally realized how to make the set itself without kind of like almost separating it completely from regular MTG, where it's like, okay, now Universes Beyond has its own product. This is just what it's going to be called going forward. And that's it. So how do you guys feel about it? I mean, it's another booster, and these boosters are supposed to kind of like tell the story a bit, kind of like kind of reminds me a little bit of like in the past where they used to put I think it was like Iconic Masters, where they kind of like spoiled it and you had to like put the tokens together to kind of like see what the encrypted message was. But I don't know, maybe we could see something like that, or it's interesting. I mean, it's what, another way to kind of get these cards from these Universes Beyond out to everybody. Rather than kind of just like shoving it into like an existing product, I guess like a set booster or something like that. So I don't know. I think when we get more details on how the layout of the cards are going to be and the rarities and everything, I think we'll have a better idea of how we feel like about Beyond boosters. Right now, it's kind of like up in there where it's like, how many rares are in it? How many alternate cards are in it? How many? Is it all foil? Is it, like, is it a guaranteed foil in it? Is it, there's like all these little things that already come with the regular booster that maybe we're expecting with these Beyond boosters. And maybe, so do we, I was under the impression myself that Aftermath was like a test set to kind of see if they could do like a smaller set, kind of like things like that, to see maybe how low count of cards they can maybe put in booster pack. And I feel like maybe is Beyond boosters the next step from the epilogue boosters, maybe, where the epilogue boosters obviously were telling more of a story. Right? Like it didn't really feel like a Magic set, as more like, okay, we're kind of finishing off what we started in March of the Machine. And, maybe these boosters are kind of like that, more flavorful, more story driven, rather than like, I don't know, powerhouse. Like it's not going to be a collector booster, obviously, right? Like,
I mean, I can tell you, I was not a fan of the epilogue boosters from Aftermath. Me, when a new Magic set comes out, I want to be able to draft it. That's just me. That's how I get acclimated with the cards. Being able to play a pre-release with the new cards is something that I want to do to learn the mechanics. That wasn't possible with Aftermath. And because there were so little cards in the set, there was so much duplication when you would open packs. And I don't know about you, but I don't think the majority of folks enjoyed the non-existent MSRP of still paying $5 a booster pack for them. And now you can get Aftermath packs for like, I don't know, $2.50 in some places. So they only come with 5 cards. And it's harder for new players to buy product like that. No. There's a difference, though, if you are selling it for Universes Beyond that won't be in a standard set, right? As supplemental product, however they want to do that. But Aftermath, I didn't enjoy it as a set.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. In theory, the idea of a 5-card booster is something that I'm actually 100% for. I think that the idea of a slimmer booster is not a bad idea as long as it is fully loaded with the good stuff that we care about, you know? And I feel like with Aftermath, they were just like, here are a crap load of uncommons. Have fun. And it's like, wait a minute, you know, like if every 5-card booster pack was 2 rares, you know, that could be upgraded to mythic, 2 uncommons, and an arena code for a pack,
right?
And it cost $2.50 or $3. Cool. But yeah, the idea of spending $5 or $4.50 or whatever it was on a 5-card pack, like, it just felt wrong. Even if the cards I'm not getting are the commons that would end up filling my bulk and not actually getting played anyway, like, it still didn't feel right. Like, that product, I don't think the general core idea of it wasn't awful. I mean, the lack of a limited environment is a big factor. It's funny, I don't actually engage with the limited very often, but I play Standard and Explorer quite a lot on Arena. I'm on it every day, and the other day, one of my viewers on Twitch recommended that I add a particular card to one of my decks. I believe it was called like Campus Reconstruction, and I pulled it up, and at the time, I literally had never seen it before.
Right,
it was
yeah.
in Aftermath, and I had 4 copies on Arena, and I was just like, "What is this?" I honestly I don't believe I'd ever seen it before, and it was a Boros or Campus Renovation rather. Sorry, it's a Boros Reanimator card. It's like right up my alley, but it was an uncommon from Aftermath. Well, I didn't engage much with Aftermath because it was hard to. You know, you couldn't. Carlo, to your point, you couldn't draft it. There was a lot of and the packs didn't look like good value, so I didn't invest in them. Yeah. You know. And as a result, there were a lot of cool designs like this that just kind of flew under the radar. You'll notice that too. This is a little bit of an aside, but I think when a set is underappreciated or not drafted, cards will fly under the radar. Like, there are some amazing commander cards that are in like say Battle for Baldur's Gate or like a couple of old core sets that people have just forgotten about that are phenomenal cards, but they're worth like 20 cents. And I think the only reason is because people don't know they exist.
Didn't play them enough, yeah.
They just don't know them. It's not that they don't like them. It's just people genuinely don't know they're out there, and as a result, don't go buy them. And there are hundreds of cards that are like that. I can't tell you how many times, like, I've been looking through my bulk and I stopped to read a card. It's like, wait a minute, this actually looks pretty decent. It's like, oh, it's like, well, we just don't know it. So if you can't draft it, and if it's like, Aftermath felt tacked on in general too, like it just kind of was there. So, but anyway, to the question of the Beyond boosters, they could be shorter, they could be smaller, they could be modeled after something like a set booster. They don't necessarily have to be like a draftable 15 card booster product to still be like a good value. It does come down to what's the rare density in the pack itself. Are the cards in the Assassin's Creed set any good? Obviously, that's the biggest question. Because, like, you know, you can go buy a pack of Dragon's Mages for $1 right now. Nobody cares, right? Anyway.
Like, what if there's cards exclusive to just Beyond boosters? Like, what if it's just like collector boosters where it's like, okay, you can only open this variant in a collector booster. So then it's kind of like serializing like regular cards in like a way where it makes it rare to find this card in a booster pack. And it's interesting. I think there's a lot of open space for them to kind of like play with. I feel like that's almost why it's with Assassin's Creed and not with it probably will be with like a Final Fantasy, but I think that's why they're starting it off with a set like the Assassin's Creed, where you're not necessarily going to kind of hit the IP as hard as it could be if people don't like the Beyond boosters, because I feel like everybody hates everything that comes out. So I already know that everyone's going to hate the Beyond boosters.
I just
their
don't want
first
it to be
iteration is going to
adding.
be rough, I think.
I don't want it to be adding complexity. Like, is Final Fantasy going to have draft boosters, set boosters, collector boosters, and Beyond boosters, and like some other flavor of booster? There's like, how many different types can we have? You know, I felt like the draft booster and the set booster carried individual. I mean, how many decades did we have just boosters? Like
just regular booster
They were just
packs.
boosters. They were a 15-card booster pack. You could draft them. You could just crack them. That's what they were. It's funny, actually. I was opening some Double Masters not too long ago, and I was like, wait, are these draft or set boosters? They're just boosters. It's like that wasn't long ago. Anyway, so the number of booster products that we have out there right now, it's getting muddy. It is getting tough to follow what is available where, and I worry that obfuscation, that confusion could be used for some pretty predatory practices if they want to do that. I hope that is not what's going on. And I hope they are genuinely trying to just produce products that can appeal to different audiences. You know, like the collector booster being marketed at whales, whereas the set booster is marketed at people who don't want to draft but want to buy the cards at a reasonable price. Sure. Like, I don't know. I get it. What niche is the beyond booster filling? At this point, I don't feel like we have it, or like I don't feel like we fully know, unless it's just a booster pack that is only the Assassin's Creed cards. And maybe as the Universes Beyond products expand, maybe they'll do like a mystery booster style thing where you can just get Universes Beyond cards in them from a bunch of different, properties. That could be kind of interesting, actually.
Yep.
So anyways, Wizards, all of our contact information is going to be down below in the description. If you like all of us coming up with cards, don't forget.
We are shockingly available. Hit us up.
We got tons of awesome ideas here. We'll come up with like 12 boosters if you need us to.
How many booster products you got? How many do you need? We'll have them on your desk by the morning. Don't worry.
We'll just have to warn you that we enjoy jank more than some people. So.
Very true.
This is true.
100%. I think they should have the 50-cent jank booster where like none of the good rares are in it. It's just the filler. Like Anyway,
it's just copies of Dan.
Yeah.
Just 15 Dan in a pack.
I'm so there, dude. Are you kidding?
It's all day.
I love it.
All
Very
day,
cool.
nothing but Dan.
But yeah, so we covered a ton today, and this has been an awesome conversation as always. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. So before we go, do you guys have any final thoughts? Pizza, I know you've got a tournament coming up this weekend, which is pretty exciting. Do you want to tell the people about that?
Yeah, we've got the Pizza Box Open Standard. This is the last tournament of August. Back in September, we're going to go back on the 3-tournament month train. Don't forget, we're also doing the Jankathon, which is going to be our first annual championship tournament, so you can qualify for that if you get top 8 in the tournament this Sunday. It's free to play. Going to be $250 to top 8 on the line. We're going to have some awesome commentators with Will Hall and Philippa. We're also going to have Ham Hocks on there as well, so it's going to be a really, really awesome time. Overall, we haven't had Standard for almost a month now. Usually we have a lot of Standard tournaments, but with all the Explorer first half of the month here for Arena, we've definitely been catering more towards Explorer content and tournaments in general, but going to be really cool to go back to Standard and kind of see where the format's at. And, I think this is the last Standard tournament before Wilds of Eldraine. When Wilds of Eldraine comes out, I believe we will have the cards for our first tournament in September. We'll have to double check my schedule, which September schedule will be out soon as well. But I think that we'll be able to have one of the first tournaments with the new Eldraine cards. So remember, this is the last Standard tournament potentially for the season. Until the new cards hit. So, probably going to get to see some old favorites that are maybe good now that maybe when Eldraine comes out aren't going to be so good. So, definitely come out. Standard's always a good time. A lot of different decks. And you can also check out my article on MagicJank.com where I talk about what decks to play and kind of give you an idea of what the best decks in the format are. So, definitely check all that out. Like I said, tournaments are free. It's going to be below in the description.
Mm-hmm. All right. Fantastic. Yeah, Carlo, any final thoughts? Anything you want to let the people know about?
Yeah, in case you're looking for some Standard content, not only Pizza's channel and Ham's channel, but my channel also does focus mostly on Standard, but a lot of community decks. So if you just want to see what some folks are playing on the ladder, right? Maybe they're not the most competitive of decks, but they are really good. And I would encourage you to check that out. I normally stream 4 times a week. Usually Monday through Wednesday, and then Saturday or Sunday. I just might be playing the Pizza Box Standard Tournament on Sunday, so You might get to see me playing some viewer deck as a part of the tournament, trying to qualify for that Jankathon. So yeah, check me out.
Absolutely. Yeah, all three of us are streamers over on Twitch. Our links will be in the description. Also, I just want to say, Carlo has possibly the most fun, like, follow sound alert on Twitch. So
Facts.
pop over to that channel when he's live and go ahead and hit that. And it's delightful. Anyway, so yes, thank you so much, gentlemen. This has been an absolute pleasure. And thank you, folks, for tuning in. It means the world. So this is this is a weekly podcast. Please, like, if you wouldn't mind, leaving us a 5-star review on your podcast app of choice. If you're on the YouTubes, like and subscribe. Interact in any of the ways. Click the buttons. You know how to do the things. We would really appreciate it. So yes, thank you so much, everybody. And we'll catch you on the next one.
Bye, everybody.